back to the ML Capital Podcast. My name is Jack.
My name is Jack.
And thank you guys for joining us. We have a very exciting podcast, just the two of us today. We got some very hot topics today, Jack.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's some spicy stuff going on in the S&P. We're going to see what's actually at the bottom of it, how that's going to affect people that are invested in it, and what you should be doing at home to protect yourself from that.
Yeah, not only the bottom of the S&P, we're also talking about the top. Yep. Companies like Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft. They're doing fantastic recently. Interest rates, they got a cut in Canada about a week or two ago.
Yep.
Mortgage rates, that affects lots of different things. People missing their mortgage payments because interest rates were so high.
Totally.
I say we just jump right into it.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, like you said, it was June 5th. They cut by 25 basis points.
That's correct.
In Canada, at least. And we're seeing this this is what investors are starting to expect. You can see it in the bond markets. People are moving towards, right now, you're going to be, they're buying long terms?
They would be buying long terms.
Yeah, they're buying long terms.
If interest rates are expected to decrease in the short term.
Totally. So they're trying to lock in at long-term bonds right now because of the interest rates that have been, recent. And because they're dropping, you're not going to want to pick up short-term bonds.
Absolutely.
You don't want to get stuck in a dropping market without having that long-term exposure.
Exactly. And, interest rates, they affect so many different aspects of the country. One thing I want to touch on mostly is mortgages.
Yeah.
Right? So rates have been high for a long time. This is the first rate cut in 4 years. And Canadians have been struggling with their mortgage payments due to those high rates. In Q1 of 2024, there was a 23% increase in the number of Canadians who missed a mortgage payment.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it was time. It was time for the government to step in. They needed to lower these rates because the interest that people were paying on not only their mortgages, but their car loans, their credit cards was just too high.
Yeah.
So it was definitely time to jump in. And, talking about mortgages, I'd also like to briefly talk about rent prices hitting an all-time high in Canada. If you're trying to live in this country, it's a struggle right now.
It's tough.
If you're trying to do a mortgage, interest rates are high. If you're trying to rent, all-time high rent average, $2,202 per month.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Yeah. And what's the down payment you have to even purchase a home here?
Well, it depends. If it's first-time home buyer, you can do 5%.
5%.
But the recommended and what we recommend here is 20% down.
Yeah.
For, second-time home buyers. You can use some of the equity from your first property onto your second. But first-time home buyers, it's difficult to jump in 5%.
It's impossible. So good luck, anyone in the GTA, any of our GTA listeners, the Greater Toronto area. You're looking at, if you want to try and hit that 20% number, I hope you got $200,000 in your pocket at least. Yeah. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to get in there, especially like right now with the job markets. Yes, unemployment's really low, but only in certain sectors. And we're starting to see jobs come back in finance, and they will especially come back when these rates get cut even more. But it's been tough in the last few years. Even internship positions are impossible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of internships, Jack, you just got accepted an internship position for September.
Yep.
We're talking about how it's a difficult market out there, but you're doing it. It's a good job. Congrats.
I'm super excited. And for anyone out there who's still trying to get one, if you're trying to get a fall or winter internship, I really advise you to try and get that. There's going to be a little bit less competition out there because most people are at school at that time. Summer internships are a lot more competitive. I will say it's a numbers game. You got to go out there and just play the numbers. I really don't feel down on yourself when you get the rejection. It happens.
Yeah.
There's people out there that are going to get it. It is what it is.
Yeah. Tailoring your resume, though, it does make a really big difference.
Totally.
If you actually tailor your experiences, your past, achievements to the position you're applying for, really definitely helps.
And it sounds brutal, right? Like, I know the feeling of sitting down, you see the application of the job and you're going, oh, I could get all of these, but am I going to change my resume 20 times today for 20 positions?
Yeah.
I wouldn't look at it like that, just because if you mass apply with the same resume to every job, you're not even going to get looked at. It really is that competitive.
Yeah.
I would just maybe cut the quantity down, how many you're doing a day, and make it like 1 or 2 really good applications.
Absolutely. 4 positions that you're genuinely interested in.
Yeah.
Because if you're just doing mass applications, you might not even be enjoying the application
Yeah.
or the internship that you're applying for.
No, and then you get stuck if you get the interview. Now you're stuck. You're stuck practicing for an interview you don't even care about.
Yeah, exactly.
So don't even bother with. Don't even waste your time doing that.
Yeah. Good luck to you all out there, and congrats, Jack.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit. I'd like to jump in on Apple, just because of the new Apple Intelligence that was released. People have been going crazy about this.
It's cool. Was the math thing part of that?
Yes, so the calculator
Really cool.
on the Apple iPad,
Yeah.
now where you can do math
Yes.
on the Notes app, and then it'll automatically populate for you.
Yeah.
That's being integrated. Siri is getting a whole new revamp where now she can, search things through your phone for you, search things
Yeah.
online for you. Way more integrated. I don't know about you, Jack. I don't use Siri currently.
Nope.
It's just not good.
No.
It's never been up to the standards that I'm looking for.
In fact, I know a lot of people who like immediately when they get an iPhone turn it off.
Mine is off right now. Yeah.
They just turn it off because it's annoying. It pops up. It doesn't help at all. I'd love to see some more integration with Siri if they're going this route. Doing stuff like the Photos app that Apple does.
Yes.
I recently just found this out, but you can like search through your photos with words,
Yeah.
and you've not programmed anything into the phone to do that. So if
Yeah.
I search up white dog,
Yeah.
It'll auto go through all my photos and pick out everything with that. Or I
Yeah.
can search a contact name. I can search up Jack Lyon and it'll know your face and pick all the photos that he's in.
Yeah. Not only that, now you can like create new emojis, right?
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen
Yeah.
that? So you can, again, it's just customization, but it's being more, connective with your contacts and your friends, trying to, use Apple technology. It's being more integrated in your day-to-day life and how you communicate with others. AI photo editing. Now you can use Siri to say, can you enhance this photo to make it look better?
Oh,
And then
wow.
it'll just automatically do that for you, right? So it's trying to
Wow.
just be more efficient in the way
Yeah.
that you use your phone and try to get people to switch from Android to Apple.
And I think this is a great play for Apple in general, right? As we've seen in the past, like Apple's the go-to for a more simple, always going to work solution. Whereas Android, a lot of the more, at least from what I've seen, a lot of the more techie people use it that want to do a lot of customization with their phone that, know what's going on in the back end and they're fine if their phone lags out and they can fix it. This is going to really help a lot of the users on Apple. I'm actually excited to see like they have a large group of people on Apple products that are older that don't know a lot about AI,
Yeah.
and I'm excited for them to finally get their hands on it in a more like accessible way.
Exactly. Now that you have to search for AI tools, right? You need to use
Totally.
Google, search for it, know what you're searching for, know how to use it.
Yeah.
If it's just built into the device directly,
Yeah.
it's way more efficient.
Oh, they're gonna get their socks knocked off.
Yeah. They're currently partnering with ChatGPT to complete all of this AI software.
Okay.
Some people were
And
concerned.
ChatGPT is owned by
Microsoft.
weird
Yes.
collab.
So people were a bit hesitant with the privacy concerns, but classic Apple really drove home the privacy that even though it's integrated into the phone, there is absolutely no connection to any of your personal information. Like the AI doesn't have access to any of that.
Okay.
And it also gives you a warning if you're leaving the Apple ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're, say, it has to take you to Google, it has to take you to somewhere else, there's a little notification that'll let you know it's doing that. Quickly, just finishing up here on Apple. The news, like the stock price was affected from this news. 7% up the day after this announcement of this new AI integration. And then the week following, another 7%. So
Yeah.
they're up, 14% on the month now. Really, really, successful launch for Apple. They've now passed NVIDIA when NVIDIA overtook them a couple weeks ago. So now Apple is the second largest, most valuable company in the world.
Wait, they're the second?
They're the second. Microsoft overtook them a couple months ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So they were third. Now they're back up to second.
Yep.
And they're sitting pretty up there.
Well, and it's actually just going to help out Microsoft as well for them just hopping on GPT's wave.
Exactly. And it's a bit unfortunate that Apple was unable to create AI themselves, right? Like
Do you think they will,
valuable
or do you think
platform.
they'll always just buy it off?
They certainly want to try, but who knows?
Yeah.
It's a very complex system. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's switch it into something different,
Yep.
a little bit wild, a little bit more government side of things. The U.S. government on Monday sued Adobe, which I recently had just put out a report on.
yes.
And I thought Adobe was a great buy. So this is something we have to take into consideration. One of the risk factors that I laid out was potential risk of legislation or being sued.
Government influence.
Yeah, and you got to think about these things when you're investing in a company. I know we also have Live Nation in our portfolio, which sadly hasn't been doing too hot as of recently. And that a lot has to do with, some of the antitrust laws in the States thinking that they have a monopoly over the market and what's going to happen with them. But anyways, for Adobe, here's what they were doing. They had some really lucrative subscription plans that they were pushing on their users. And if you've used Photoshop, if you use Acrobat, you know how pricey these things get. And it's not cheap. What they weren't telling people was the termination policy that sometimes costed hundreds of dollars to cancel the membership, according to Reuters. So yeah, this is going to be interesting for Adobe. We're going to see likely a big dip in the price until we can get to a point where they for sure know what's going to happen with the case.
Yeah, just to clarify, it was built into the terms and conditions of Adobe that if you want to cancel your subscription, you might have to pay hundreds of dollars just to cancel your subscription.
But they failed to disclose it.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
I know.
I can't believe that this wasn't discovered sooner.
Yep. No, it was wild. And that was on their annual paid subscription plan. So if you actually have an Adobe subscription out there, maybe take a look, maybe figure out what's going on there, and you might be able to get... would you, in this situation, would you be able to be part of a class action?
I wouldn't see why not.
Yeah,
because you were wrongfully charged by a company.
Totally.
So if you did cancel your it would be if you canceled your subscription.
You're right.
In that
and
time
you paid
frame.
it.
Yeah. Okay, let's also transition a little bit into the Canadian US dollar. So Jack, people have been traveling recently. Maybe you guys have noticed at home too that when you're trying to purchase US funds, it's expensive.
Totally.
The current exchange rate for Canadian dollars to US, 1.35% approximately, right? So every US dollar that you want to buy costs $1.35 Canadian. And that's expensive. It's been going up. In fact, the loonie, which is the Canadian dollar, has weakened by 13% since 2021, right? So in the past 3 years, it's decreased in value by 13%. And you might ask, what's going on with the Canadian dollar? Why is our currency being weakened? That's not actually the case. It's that the US dollar is being strengthened.
Really?
Right?
From what?
Well, I'll let you know, Jack.
All right.
It's from all of the foreign investment, right? If you're taking a look at the
Yeah.
S&P 500, taking a look at the NASDAQ, it's been growing tremendously since the pandemic. And foreign countries want to get involved, right? And so they're dumping funds into the US markets. And you might ask, well, how does that increase the US dollar? They're having to convert their currency into US dollars. So the demand for the US dollar in order to purchase US companies and stocks, that demand is driving up the price.
Wow.
Yeah, and so in fact, the Canadian dollar is holding strong. It's doing great. It's the US dollar that's becoming more and more expensive.
Now, this might change in the future, though, and I'll tell you why I think so. We've got an election around the corner, very divisive. We're not going to talk anything political, but absolutely wild stuff going on. One party is talking about putting on even crazier tariffs across people across the world. We're going to see at that point, is there going to be retaliation of foreign investment on the U.S. if they start putting major tariffs on countries like China? Is China going to stop investing? What's going to happen with that? And personally, if I was a Tesla holder, I would be a little bit worried because you got to think about this, right? Tesla has had a few bad. Their last earnings report was not good.
No.
Dropped in price. There's a bit of concerning, news with the owner of Tesla being a wild guy. And on top of that, they really require that lithium to make these batteries for their cars.
Yep.
And if Trump ends up winning and puts massive tariffs on China, it is going to be extremely expensive to get that lithium.
Yeah, they import all of their lithium from other countries.
Yeah.
There's a couple lithium mines in the U.S., but majority is foreignly imported into the country. Yeah, these tariffs, they're going to hit some companies like Tesla really, really hard.
It's going to be interesting. So I just recently kind of touched on a report about made a report for one of my classes about shorting Tesla because of that. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. But speaking of electric cars, let's move into BYD.
Yeah. Let's hear it, Jack.
Yeah, we were originally really excited about BYD.
We had a great theory, which was that BYD was, this cheaper company, really up and coming in China, and they were still making high quality cars, right? China, they just have so many manufacturing plants that they're just the king of manufacturing, and it was no different with vehicles. But we haven't really seen that play out. Unfortunately,
we thought it was going to be huge. We kind of looked at it about maybe 6 months ago, and it's been very stagnant since then, which is wild because we had expected, Tesla, like what I just said, Tesla's going to drop off, and if China can figure its way out in the landscape of exporting those vehicles, they can be, because they are the number one electric car seller.
Yes, they sell more than Tesla.
They sell more than Tesla.
Yeah.
Their cars are cheaper. Anecdotally, their cars are better, in my opinion.
Yes.
It's just a matter of how do you penetrate different markets with those cars without those countries placing tariffs on your cars that make it just as expensive to buy as the current cars in the market.
And unfortunately, I just don't think they can.
No,
right?
Me neither.
So I don't think the play for them is to try to penetrate the North American market. I just don't think that they're going to efficiently break into the US, break into Canada. But in the Asian markets, they have more people.
Yeah,
right? They just have more people who can even purchase these vehicles.
I think it's going to be a massive domestic company, and they're going to have a real tough time breaking out. Like, I still haven't seen any BYDs on the road.
Never.
But saying that, Berkshire Hathaway, who had purchased... Their fund had purchased a large stake in BYD in 2008.
2008. We didn't even hear about this company until 6 months ago.
It's wild.
So he was really early on that train. He's kind of been selling out, Jack.
Yeah. He's been leaving the position. He's trimmed off a bit, and he was at a 7.02% stake in BYD, and now it's around 6.9%. So he sold $40 million worth of BYD. If you could believe it, when he bought it in 2008, since then it's 20x'd.
Yeah, which is absurd.
So maybe our theory was right, but just...
a little late. We're 20 years.
A decade late.
Yeah, decade over. Yeah, 15 years late.
A decade late to our theory, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I don't think that this trend does anything good for BYD.
No, I wish that we had more large foreign companies coming in to the country and driving competition, decreasing prices for consumers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, just with the increase in tariffs and all the taxing that's happening with these foreign companies, we really just haven't seen it yet.
Yep.
I'd really prefer if we had some diversity and variety here in Canada.
Yeah, at least to buy.
Yeah, our telecom companies, for example, there's only 2, Bell and Rogers. The banks, we've only got the 5 big banks. It's really just super, almost monopolistic or
oligopolistic markets in Canada are killing the consumer, right?
Yeah.
And like you said at the beginning of the podcast, rent prices are out of control. So you're mixing that with phone bills being like 10x every other country in the planet.
Exactly. We're by far the most expensive. Is really just being incapable almost for the average person to live here in Canada comfortably.
Totally.
I feel like something has to change. I don't know if that's going to be drops in interest rates. I don't know if that's going to be increases in minimum wage. Who knows what? It's such a complex topic that it's impossible to just name one. It's going to be a mix of all of these, and
it's tough, right? Like a lot of these big companies just gobble up anything new that comes into the market, whether it's a good buy or not, because they just don't want to deal with the competition.
Exactly.
And yeah,
we'll just have to see.
We're going to see.
Real quickly too, the average Canadian has a investment portfolio comprised of 52% of Canadian stocks. Right, so which surprised me when I read this. Right, statistic. Which is a lot considering Canada only makes up 3% of the global economy, the global industry.
Yeah.
So when you're in Canada, we're really investing in Canadian companies.
Wow.
52% on average, and that does surprise me, and it doesn't surprise me just because when you're in Canada, you only hear the same companies over and over again. It's always either Bell or Rogers. True. So why not invest in them, right? It's always one of the 5 big banks.
And I actually have Bell.
Right, I have Bell too. I've got the banks. I've got large positions in Canadian companies.
Yeah.
And I think the average person, just because they hear about these companies so often,
Totally.
they're comfortable investing in them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that 52% of Canadian portfolios are comprised of the Canadian actual stocks.
Yeah.
What do you think yours is?
Oh, low. Mine's 10 to 15.
I would have to say it's under 15% too.
Yeah.
So that's wild.
Yeah. I think it's the more comfortable you are with investing, the more you're comfortable with investing in foreign markets. You know, we're talking about the US. It is a foreign market, right? But it's kind of our neighbor, so it's not as scary. But, you know, you think about foreign countries, you know, in China and India, for example, they invest in their own stock market. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're in Canada, you know, you tend to gravitate towards your country and companies that are in it.
Interesting, man. All right. Is there anything else you got?
I'm wrapped up here. You know, I want to thank our members for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me and Jack.
Amazing.
And we'll see you next week, probably.
Totally. You've been tuned in to Invested in You. My name is Jack.
My name is Jack.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bada boom, bada bing.